Hello, and welcome to today's video. One of the questions I get all the time is, how am I ever going to fix my SIBO or my SIFO if I don't kill it? How does a low kill or a no kill approach actually even work? How are these bugs that have overgrown in my digestive system? How am I going to get them to decrease and get them to move out? How is this going to work without some sort of antibiotic, antifungal, antimicrobial agent? And this is a really good question. So I just wanted to dive into this question in a little bit more detail and help you understand how a low kill, no kill SIBO C4 approach actually works and why I prefer to use this sort of approach instead of antimicrobial agents. So first of all, let's look at the traditional or the mainstream modern medicine approaches to how do we approach SIBO and SIFO. So the understanding through the modern lens in mainstream medicine is that SIBO or SIFO is simply an overgrowth of bacteria or yeast in the small intestine, and we can just kill those organisms and problem solved. We had too many, we kill them with an antibiotic or with oil of oregano or with fluconazole or something, and we kill them, and that's it. Problem solved. The amount of organism that was there is large, now it's less. We fixed it. But if it was as simple as this, you would just see the problem permanently solved. And that isn't the case. What very often happens is you'll end up seeing multiple relapses where somebody uses this kill approach, they get a negative breath test and a lot of their symptoms improve, but for a very short period of time. 3 months later, they're having the same problem again. And the doctors will say, well, let's do the same thing again because it worked last time, so it will work again. So it's another course of antibiotics. And then 3 months later is another course of antibiotics. And then 3 months later, it's another course of antibiotics. And then you get to the point where it stops action. It actually stops working completely. So we have to dig a little bit deeper to understand what is the actual problem here. Why is relapse occurring so frequently? And how does the low or no kill approach address this angle? So one of the first and most important things that you have to understand is that when someone has SIBO or SIFO, you very often see a very sharp increase in one specific type of organism, maybe 2 or 3, but it's usually a very small window of species that are increasing. And you'll actually see that across the board. So if you look at the whole microbiome in general, you will see a very significant decrease in total diversity. So the understanding here is that when the diversity is low, the likelihood of overgrowth or imbalance or a SIBO-SIFO presentation increases. And what's really tricky is that the thing that causes the largest reduction in microbiome diversity is antibiotics and antifungals, antimicrobial agents. So although they might provide a short-term fix, we're actually setting ourselves up for failure in the long run because the thing that protects us against SIBO is microbiome diversity, which we are destroying by taking antibiotics and antimicrobials. So with that being said, how do we actually kill SIBO? How do we actually get these microbes that are overgrowing in the small intestine and get rid of them? Well, first, we can take the angle from this point that I just gave you. We need to improve microbiome diversity, which ironically we do with probiotics, which is something that a lot of people that tackle SIBO-like problems advocate against. However, in my opinion, this comes from a very narrow lens of understanding in seeing that SIBO overgrowth is an objective overgrowth, and it isn't. It's a very niche overgrowth of a very small band of organisms and a deficiency or a reduction in the diversity of the overall microbiome. So we want to try to increase that diversity, and probiotics are one of the best ways that we can do that. Not just because we can repopulate with these beneficial organisms, but because probiotic organisms have a significantly influential effect on the overall composition of the microbiome. This is very often why a SIBO presentation begins in the first place, because we've lost the beneficial flora that keep the microbiome in balance. We then have to take a look at the digestive functions. So if you don't have the correct digestive function in your digestive system, you are predisposed to SIBO, SIFO, and other types of gut problems. This is because bacteria will actually move into your gut as an adaptive or as a beneficial response to help you break down and digest food if you can't do it yourself. So if you have low stomach acid, insufficient digestive enzymes, poor viscous bile, so it's very thick, sticky bile that isn't able to digest fats very well, if you have a damaged gut line, so you have unmanaged food sensitivities, creates a lot of inflammation, or if you have a damaged MMC, so a migrating motor complex, this motility that moves things through the digestive system. If any of these are inhibited or dysfunctional in any way, your likelihood of having SIBO increases significantly. And this is because these are the things that digest the food, which effectively will starve SIBO, but these also are direct killing mechanisms. Stomach acid kills microbes. Digestive enzymes break down biofilms. Bile is a very potent antimicrobial agent. Motility sweeps these things through, and the brush border and the mucosa in the digestive system is full of immune molecules and immune cells that directly influence the composition of the microbiome. So if it's chronically inflamed, that function is lost. If we correct these dysfunctions, you will see an improvement in your body's natural ability to regulate the microflora composition, to kill these harmful microbes and encourage the proliferation of diversity of these beneficial species. We also have to look at the angle of the sympathetic and parasympathetic dominant states. If your body is in a sympathetic dominant state, you're constantly in a fight, flight, freeze nervous system state. This means that a lot of energy is being directed to the survival centers instead of the parasympathetic functions, like all of the things that I just addressed above: the stomach acid, digestive enzymes, bile, motility, and mucosa. All of these are governed by the parasympathetic nervous system. So if you have a sympathetic dominant state, all of these functions are going to get suppressed. And on top of these, we also have these are probably the two dominant causes that you will see in SIBO. Usually you've got a mix of some of these other things that I've talked about, and you'll always have one or the other of these, being toxicity or deficiency. And toxicity and deficiency go hand in hand because a nutritional deficiency creates toxicities and an acute toxicity creates nutritional deficiencies. Let me just give you a really basic example. So let's take a molecule like mercury. There's very good data that the body can use selenium to help in mercury detoxification. If you're exposed to mercury, it's effectively going to deplete selenium levels because your body is using all of the selenium to remove the mercury. So you get this 1-2 problem, which is now you have mercury toxicity and a selenium deficiency, and these create a broad spectrum of problems. Selenium is really connected to the thyroid gland, so you could see depressions in thyroid function, which means reduced motility and SIBO as a presentation. Also, mercury bioaccumulates in the body, encourages the growth of yeasts and fungus. So this is one angle. You could also see the other way around. Let's say you don't eat enough selenium in your diet. Even if you're having very small trace exposures to mercury, eventually these will bioaccumulate because the natural mechanism that we have to remove them using selenium is disabled. Therefore, we end up with a toxicity and a deficiency. So these two things usually go hand in hand, and different toxic components will deplete different nutrients, and different nutritional deficiencies will cause a bioaccumulation of different toxins. But very often, the component of toxicity and deficiency is a huge factor in almost any chronic health condition. Because when you have a chronic health condition, you're almost always stuck in a state where you're chronically missing a certain nutrient, or you're chronically toxic. You've accumulated a certain amount of toxicity in the body, and because that nutrient that the body needs to get rid of it is missing, it just bioaccumulates and the body can't let it go. And you can imagine how a nutritional deficiency could create a whole bunch of different problems. I used selenium there as an example, but toxicity also suppresses the immune system. It creates gut inflammation. Most toxins have an antibiotic effect. If you could take mold toxins as an example, if you think about how antibiotics were actually discovered, I don't know if you ever heard the story, but there's this kind of visualization of the mold from the orange falling in the Petri dish and killing the bacteria. It literally shows you that antibiotics were discovered from mold. So if you have mold toxicity or mold exposure, that is going to negatively influence your microbiome composition. So to wrap this all up and actually definitively answer the question, how does a low/no SIBO-SIFO protocol actually kill these microbes in the small intestine? First of all, we increase diversity of the microbiome, because it is extremely common when you see an overgrowth of 1, 2, or 3 specific types of organisms that you'll see an overall reduction in microbiome diversity. So we want to try to utilize probiotics, and there are lots of other strategies that we can use to improve microbiome diversity. That's the first step. And these naturally beneficial organisms produce compounds that are antibacterial and antifungal. They produce inhibitory components that will discourage these other organisms from being able to grow. They'll also competitively inhibit them because they're occupying the space that they would otherwise be able to grow into uncontrolled. Next, we support the natural digestive functions that not only break down and digest our food, which starve the dysbiotic or pathogenic organisms, but they also have a natural killing mechanism inbuilt into them. And this is why a normal person can drink cups and cups and cups of kefir with really trillions of high dose probiotics and they don't get SIBO is because they have these natural cleansing mechanisms enabled. We also have to assess if there is some sympathetic dominance that's stopping the nervous system from being able to activate all of these functions. And then finally, we have to investigate any toxicity or deficiency because these influence the function of all of the glandular systems, the thyroid, the adrenal glands, the detoxification systems, and a lot of these toxins are antimicrobial in their effect, therefore decreasing the overall microbiome diversity, making the microbiome weak and more likely to develop a SIBO-like presentation. So I know this sounds a little bit more nuanced, maybe a little bit more complex than just taking an antibiotic or taking oil of oregano or caprylic acid or some kind of antimicrobial agent, but I'm hoping that you are beginning to be able to see that even though it's a little bit more complex and a little bit more nuanced, it's actually not that complicated. It's actually just getting back to nature and it's understanding how the body naturally works and how the body naturally protects itself from these kinds of problems and figuring out where in that natural system has there been a problem. And I guarantee you, it's not that you have an antibiotic deficiency that just simply doesn't exist. There's some kind of imbalance in one of these systems that I've just outlined. And if we want to find a lasting resolution to these problems, we need to investigate a little bit further and address these problems at the root. I'm hoping that I've equipped you well enough so that you can start to tackle this by yourself. But if you would like a little bit of extra support, if you would like me to work with you one-on-one in trying to figure out the cause behind these things so we can actually try to find a more lasting resolution than just taking another course of antibiotics that might provide a little bit of relief and actually makes it harder to heal in the long run, I'd be really happy to do that. Please just reach out, shoot me an email, support@williamdickinson.co.uk. We can look at arranging a consultation together so I can help you figure out what's going on. I can answer all of your questions. We can assess any testing and labs that you have, and we can build you a roadmap so that you could feel like you're on the right track to finding a resolution to the issues that you might be facing. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions. If you disagree and you think antimicrobials are definitely the way to do it, make sure you let me know below because I'm always open to contrasting or opposing opinions to those that I hold. But I've been through this whole thing myself. I took all the antibiotics, the antimicrobials. It didn't really work for me. And now I work with a lot of people that have kind of a similar story to myself. And I work with them and help them find a resolution to these types of problems. But I'm always looking for more information and I would love to hear from you about your experience or maybe this approach is exactly what's working for you. Either way, leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. And if you have any questions about anything that I mentioned in the video, do make sure you leave me a comment below. I read every single comment. I try to get back to as many as I can. If you do leave me a really nice, juicy, interesting question, I will be sure to get back to you. So that's everything for me today. You take care and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.